Hi, everybody, and welcome to Pop Therapy, a podcast where we explore the intersection between psychology and pop culture. There's so much to unpack, so let's get started. Well. I don't know why I like starting. I'm going to start each episode that way. Hi, everybody. It's me, your friendly neighborhood therapist, Omar. I'm just going to dive right in. It's Sunday here in New York. And to my surprise, I went to the gym earlier today, and I never go to the gym on a weekend because I'm like, this is my time to like relax. I'm not trying to sweat on purpose. But this time I was like, go to the gym, have a productive day, blah, blah, blah. And it's getting warmer here in New York. And so, of course, there's just like less clothing and more skin. And I was just at the gym monitoring all of my thoughts. One of them is the comparison voice, like the critic that comes out and is like, you don't look as good as that guy. You don't look as good as that guy. Or like, you're not as ripped as that other dude. His shoulders are better than yours. Oh my God, he has a 37 pack. You have a keg under your shirt. Like, what are you doing? And that voice just like goes on and on and on and on. And you know, one of the things I want to do with this podcast is to talk about some of the like psychological approaches, mindsets, strategies to navigate thoughts like that, to navigate when, you know, the inner critic or saboteur shows up to wreak havoc on your self-esteem. And so one of the things that I have to actively do is to remind myself, like, first of all, you don't really care about having a six pack. Like, that would be nice. That does sound nice. It's like reminding myself that I don't actually care. Also, to have the kind of body that I see at the gym sometimes where I'm like, holy shit, would require me to devote even more time to how I look. And that just sounds miserable for me. This is no shade to like people that they have to do this for their work. Like, I totally get that. If you're an actor, a trainer, or whatever, I get that. This is separate from that. But like, I'm a therapist and my clients don't need me to be jacked. So it's just, that's like, these are the things I have to remind myself. Like, Omar, first of all, nobody's asking you to be ripped. Second of all, you don't care that much. And third of all, if this is taking up that much mental real estate, then you are too bored. Like, go read a book. Like, stop thinking about your body. Go for a while, like go do something else. So it's usually an indicator that I'm bored. Hopefully, you know, someone finds this useful. But with that being said, speaking of looks, and so I'm going to tee up this story and then I'm going to introduce my guest because I want to hear his reaction to what I'm about to say. So I went to a birthday party recently and there were some people there that looked really great. They looked significantly younger than their age. These were folks that were in their like late 40s, early 50s, and they looked significantly younger, like at least 10 or 15 years younger. And at some point, we're like, oh my God, drop the beauty tips. Like, what do you do? At some point, with the best of intentions, my boyfriend, Bragg, goes to the person we're like talking to and he goes, well, guess how old he is, pointing at me. And he means it in like a supportive, like, you won't believe how old he is, like, way. And the person takes a second, like 3 seconds, looks at me up and down, and they go, 47. 47 was the guess. Mike, my boyfriend, I know I'm talking about him all the time. I'm already making having a boyfriend my personality. His mouth like dropped to the floor. And I was just like, you know what? Thank you, universe, for keeping me humble. Every once in a while, when I'm feeling like really cute, or I'm like, oh, you're looking good today, the universe is like, no. Come back down to earth. 47. Yeah, that rocked my world. And I was like, well, here we are. With that being said, I'm going to introduce my guest. He's a dear friend of mine. You can catch him on TikTok talking about all things political. We're going to dive into, you know, his rise to stardom, to fame and stardom in the political world. Please welcome to your ears, Nathan June. down.
I wish people could see my face when you said rise to stardom.
He was nodding like, yeah, duh. No, he wasn't.
I was making that like side eye meme of just like, okay, girl, it's
yeah, relax. 47. Can you believe that?
Well, as somebody who is Asian, I get anywhere from like 28 to 60. It's like,
oh, so you see, I figured you would understand what like this like experience, just like being someone guessing your age, like way over what your actual age.
Well,
is.
most people assume, I would say a majority of it, people assume that I'm in my early 30s.
Yeah.
And that is genetics.
Right.
And botox.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
But, every once in a while, you will get somebody who will be like, oh, I believe that you're almost 42.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, just because, I do have gray hair, but like somebody who is Asian and an Asian guy specifically, I will look like this until I'm like 65, and then everything will just fall.
Yeah.
And then I will look like Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
It's like for the rest of my life, and there's nothing I can do about it.
And Nathan can say that because he's Asian.
Yes.
No one else can claim Mr. Miyagi. So don't get any ideas. Yeah. No, that really like rocked my world. But as a Latin person, same. It's like mostly genetics. Obviously, I've done a little like boop, boop here and there, but it is mostly genetics.
Just a little jab.
Just a little jabby jab, but just a cute little prick here and there. But yeah, so that just like rocked my world. But, God bless that person who guessed 47. I will never forget that for as long as I live. Yeah. So, Nate, one of the things that sticks out to me when I think about your social media presence is how like 1 second I felt like you were doing pretty standard, like I guess you would call it like lifestyle stuff, like traveling and outfits and like cute things like that. And like, oh, here's what I'm doing today. And there was like some posts about working out and fitness. And then to me as an observer, it was like one day you posted something about a politics, and then all of a sudden you had like a gajillion followers following you. And I guess I want to have a sense of like, what did that feel like for you? It felt like overnight to me that I was like, holy shit, this is someone who has a ton of followers, whose content is almost exclusively now like breaking down political information and news. But I am also aware of like, as an audience member, like that's from my perspective. What was it like for you, or how did it feel like for you?
Well, let's rewind a little bit. And I had been stretching back to the pandemic. I had been very, very mindful, and I had been observing what I would call performative wokeness happening from progressives, and really starting with the Black Lives Matter movement, where you had individuals who have never probably even had a friend in their life who was Black, suddenly posting Black squares. And it was all with good intent.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of speaking to this overall message of how much people want to project out into the world via social media this narrative that they are themselves progressive, which is really just a way for them to develop a sense of being and a sense of comfort for themselves, more so than their actual morals and values being projected. And then, you go into the genocide that started happening, and then you had a lot of people who had never been political suddenly being political. And what ultimately I saw happening was just a lot of good intended misinformation being spread that was causing me to do a lot of research, because I would see something that seemed very, very sensationalized and very, very jarring. And then I would look into it and find that it wasn't a lie, but it also wasn't a complete truth.
Right.
Ultimately, what happened was basically I started creating content simply because there was just so much screaming happening. It's like, and it's so funny because you have all of this content that is just headlines. It's just headline skimming with a very good graphic, and it's automatically shared, and there's no sites sourced. There's no further information. And it's just like this giant headline. And what I kind of realized when I initially started posting was I'm going to talk about the fact that I am researching things further and breaking down actually what's happening. And what that ended up being was correcting a lot of the headlines that were being shared, which actually resulted in me being called somebody who was like a Republican in disguise. But it's still happening even today with the current political climate. The other side was my experience as somebody who is gay, somebody who lives in New York City and has lived here for almost 20 years, somebody who is a person of color, somebody who's an immigrant. Mm-hmm. By all definitions, I should be looked at as a woke, radical leftist.
Right.
But I come from a Republican MAGA family.
Right.
And so I was also providing a lot of context as to what is the actual psychological, emotional, and like reasoning behind MAGA's existence, because I understand it firsthand.
Right. I remember one of the things that I found really fascinating and that I appreciated was that it felt like you were creating content to help your family understand a lot of what was going on, or rather that you had them in the back of your mind as like, I want to try to explain this in a way that my incredibly conservative family members can understand, or can at the very least like hear. And it felt like that was always in the back of your mind, that it was kind of for them, not exclusively, but that's like, it felt like that's where it started.
It did in a certain way. Like I knew my family was following me, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I knew that they were seeing it. And it was one of those things where I wasn't trying to defend certain narratives that exist on the very evangelical, conservative, Christian side of politics. I was more so trying to explain to them and explain to anybody who cared to listen to me that the divisiveness is actually the worst part of the political climate in our country right now. And I don't go as far as talking about the uneducated aspects of a lot of my family members, but it has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You know, I will say, though, that up until the election, I didn't have a huge following. I had like a modest following. Mm-hmm. I think like up until the election, I had maybe like 25,000 followers, and that had grown starting in July. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it really was in November. I basically woke up the day after the election. I took a walk in Prospect Park I call them the kids that I used to manage. I shouldn't call them kids. But like the Gen Z that I used to manage at my previous job, they used to call them Minty Bee walks, which is just like a mental breakdown walk. So they would say in Slack, I need to take a Minty Bee walk.
Work.
And so I went for a Minty Bee walk, and I just hit record where I basically said, I am an elite Democrat in New York City, and I have actually been financially supporting, you know, aspects of my family's life for the past decade.
Right.
Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
I do remember that. You were like, the bank is closed.
Yes. That was actually the moment that I blew up, because that video got like, 1.5 million views. I think I gained 20,000 followers overnight.
What do you think it was about that? Because you weren't necessarily talking about the news or like facts or like, you weren't like breaking down information that was, dissectable. Like, what do you think it was about that particular video?
It was because up until that point, the majority narrative that exists with a house divided was this narrative of I'm cutting them off, or like they're no longer my family. And I was actually coming from a place that I just think a lot of people resonated with, which was I'm not cutting my family off. And I think the key thing that everybody seemed to respond to was when I said, I'm no longer contributing to the happiness of people who want me to have a lesser life than them.
Right. So it wasn't about cutting them out of your life, but it was about cutting them off. In your case, like financially, like I'm not going to support you financially. Yeah. And I'm not going to support you financially for your happiness anymore because you're actively voting against my happiness.
Yes.
Kind of.
And that's why I think the reason why I've gained a following is because like I always try to source where I'm getting my factual information from.
Yeah.
And a majority of the time, I don't get my information from news headlines. I read I'm not going to even say I read it. Basically, like I skimmed through like the entire budget bill recently.
Oh my God, that's a lot more than I did.
Yeah,
So
it's like, and
isn't it like a gajillion pages?
It's really long.
Yeah.
Like I ran it through ChatGPT. I'm not going to lie.
Oh,
It's
smart.
It's
okay.
So I do that with a lot of things, and I
Yeah.
basically like then I will go to the actual section, and I will actually read through the section so I can understand the provisions.
Oh, that's good.
But the funny thing is that when it first started, okay, like when I first started getting followers, you become addicted to the dopamine rush, and
like the followers, the
Yes.
engagement, the like.
You get addicted to that. And I would say there was a really, really dangerous period sometime around December, January, where, my own husband had to come to me and basically say, this is becoming your personality, and I just want you to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And so that was a really, really good rude awakening for me to like be able to take a step back. And, I just went on vacation for, 2 weeks. And I think I posted once. And that was only because I had been reading that morning, and it was just something where like I was like, I think this is important because nobody is talking about this. So I talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
But, what I think is resonating with people that do follow me again is I don't present things in a way that is trying to get them to have a anger or an emotional reaction to it.
Yeah.
I'm basically trying to inform and also provide the resources where other people can themselves become more informed.
I think it's also important to note that people on the right and Trump supporters, there are also plenty that are very well informed.
Yes.
And that understand what he's up to or what he's trying to do, or like understand what Project 2025 is. And they're like, well, yeah, that's what I want. Like, that sounds amazing.
Yes.
That sounds fantastic.
The creators that I actually almost most understand, and like the big voices that I most understand, like if we're talking about like, Charlie Kirk or, those Fox News hosts, I actually understand them more because they're very just openly misogynist.
Right.
It's like they are openly like against non-white people having provisional protections in this country.
Right.
They are openly against the trans community.
Yeah.
I would rather know that you are openly against the things that I stand for than have to just wonder if you're just an idiot.
Yeah. There's something about that I, this is like obviously not exactly what I mean, but like respect about just, oh yeah, you're just hateful.
Yeah.
And you are not trying to pretend like you're not hateful. You are not trying to pretend like you're not vile. You are showing up exactly as you are. And with that, it's like, well, I can work with the truth, right? Like I can work with that. Like you're showing up and you're telling me who you are. I can work with that versus people who are kind of like talking around how they really feel about something, or they're like tiptoeing around how they really feel about something. And I'm like, just say it, like say it with your whole chest. Like,
yeah. The worst people on the conservative side of politics are the people that claim to not be racist and claim to not be against women,
right?
But every single aspect of the actions in their lives actually scream that you are.
The opposite, right?
So those are the people that are actually worse. And that actually represents a larger voting block of Republicans.
Agreed.
Is the people that actually believe that they're not hateful individuals.
And then vote for policies and legislation that, again, like you said, say the exact opposite of that.
Well, it's crazy because like the issues for conservative voters was trans athletes being able to compete in the NCAA.
Right.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's 10 of them. You're really going to base the entire future of our country off of 10 athletes?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those things where I'm just like, that's the part where I'm just like, you don't actually make sense.
You don't actually care about this thing. I mean, and when I think about that exact thing, what I guess the conclusion-ish that I reach is, oh, you've been told that this is the most important thing that you should be worried about. You've been told you should worry about this because if this happens, your kids will be transitioned, trans people will take over the world. It's just this like a catastrophizing type of like information and like news that's being fed to folks that believe that is the number one issue.
Well, it's because the Republican Party has done a very, very successful job dating back to the late 70s and the Reagan administration of being able to be very, very clear about what their mission is.
Mm-hmm.
And they immediately turned to the trans community
Mm-hmm.
because you basically have to find and align something that seems that you can basically attach the Bible to and then just hammer that in.
Right.
And the ideology that I think it's less than 1% of the population in the United States identifies as trans or non-binary. The fact that 1% of the population who are honestly just trying to live their lives and be left alone, it's like, and are law-abiding, tax-paying citizens, that they are a top issue because somehow you believe in your small town in Kansas that trans people are the reasons why your factory is closing.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, I think you bring up a good point about a successful campaign to choose a villain and to rally around a villain. And in this case, right now, it's trans people. And I agree. They've done they've been so successful at convincing people that trans people and immigrants are the reasons why your roads are falling apart, why groceries are so expensive, why you can't find a job. And it is, again, I'm like, wow, how did y'all do that? But it kind of makes sense too, because historically, folks like to rally around a villain. Like folks like to choose a villain, a scapegoat, and sort of like project all of their unhappiness and anger at that. Like people want someone to blame.
We do that in life in general.
In life in general. Exactly.
Like
exactly.
You,
let alone in politics.
Like you lightly touched on it even with your story about being at the gym earlier today, which is like you very loosely attributed a moment of your unhappiness due to somebody else who just because they were more ripped or had a better body than you. And then if you're a gay individual listening to this, we all look at that person and we just secretly inside of our heads, the narrative, I hate you.
Yeah.
Like plays in your
or even just like on a smaller scale, like I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Like I like you shouldn't have that. I should have that. Like that sort of mentality.
Yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears a little bit because I'm really interested to know who was the most exciting like follow that you got.
Jennifer Aniston.
Okay, that is impressive. That is impressive. Yeah, Rachel herself.
Yes. I was laying on the ground on my back while a bunch of friends were at my husband and I's apartment playing Quiplash one night.
Oh, wait, was I there?
I think I was there. And I think I screamed, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's like, and everybody looked up at me and Sam was like, what? And I said, Jennifer Aniston just started following me.
I do remember that. I was like, wow, he made it. Is it weird to imagine Jennifer Aniston just sort of sitting there on her phone and just like listening to you, watching you talk?
It is, if I'm being completely honest, and I seriously doubt she will ever listen to this, and you're going to laugh at this. I actually muted her from my stories. It's because I'm like, I only want her to see like specific aspects of my life. I don't want to annoy Jennifer Aniston with my day-to-day Instagram stories.
With your trip to Mallorca.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, so I'm just going to like make it just so that she just gets the stuff in my feed.
Yeah.
And then it's so sad because every so often, like maybe every 2 weeks, I like go back and I go to her page and see if she's still following me.
Well, yeah, you got to make sure.
I was a huge Friends fan.
Yeah. That's you mentioned earlier how your husband, Sam, shout out, said to you that there was like a come to Jesus moment where he was like, this is kind of taking over. So I would imagine that this has required you to consider and to think about how to compartmentalize this, the work that you do on social media and your own personal life. How difficult or easy has that been? And how have you been able to separate the two? How have you been able to like leave work at work, essentially, when it comes to this? Just because it's with politics, it impacts every moment of our lives. Like it plays a role in everything from like groceries to employment. So how do you separate the two?
A lot of people incorrectly assume that this is what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a actual job.
Yeah.
And actually my job as a management consultant and chief marketing officer actually lends itself very, very well because my actual job is to analyze data and then create marketing strategies based off of that information. In terms of your question, though, the way that I have learned how to separate, because a lot of people actually come to me and they're like, I don't understand how you can just constantly be tapped into the news and not lose your mind. And it actually comes down to, honestly, a lot of things that I learned through therapy, which was the ability to separate things from emotionally impacting you, from, you know, being able to actually analyze things for what they are and what it is. I go to a place of some of the worst possible things are happening to the most marginalized and at-risk people in this country right now. And I don't not have empathy. And I definitely have a moment of tiny rage when I read things.
Yeah.
But the way that I think about it oftentimes is there's nothing I can really do about it. You know what I mean? So I turn to actually creating content as a means to voice how I am processing specific things. But the hardest part, honestly, is it flies at you all day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can go into your grocery store in New York City and you can still see signs up that say, due to egg shortages and like, blah, blah, blah. It's like we are limiting, like for the longest time, my grocery store said I was only allowed to buy 1 carton of eggs.
Oh, wow.
It's like, But what I've kind of done is I've reached a point now where I've already hit whatever milestones and goals that I had for myself when I started doing this. And I refuse to actually let it become my identity. I actually do like a hack that I learned by watching a YouTube video, which is I actually take my phone and I have an app that I actually do a countdown clock on, and I usually put it for 90 minutes. And so basically this countdown clock goes from 90 minutes. And during the work week, I'm not allowed to look at my phone and I have to do work right now. But you have to kind of set those physical boundaries because sometimes the mental ones don't work as well.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. That was well said. I mean, it sounds like you have to do a combination of like concrete physical actions as well as a little bit of mental gymnastics to help you separate the two. And I like the way you said, this does not pay my bills. And I think that's a good reminder to this doesn't pay your bills, so relax. Like you don't have to film content today, or, you know, don't feel external pressure to film something today just for the sake of filming something versus, I feel compelled to talk about something, or I feel moved to talk about something because it's important to me or it's important to the people I care about. So I think that that's like a much better like North Star to use. One of the things that I've been reading about and hearing people discuss is the fact that the role of social media and political discourse has changed so much from early Instagram days and even like early Facebook days to now. And one thing I've been noticing people say is, or report rather, is that a large percentage of the population get their news from social media, whether that means Facebook or TikTok or whatnot. And the almost immediate reaction I've seen is, isn't that so sad? Like, isn't that so unfortunate that people get their news from social media? And I mean, and I'm sure there are pros and cons to that, but my immediate reaction is more like, what does this reflect about the current political landscape? What does this reflect about the individuals and the populations that are mostly getting their news from social media? And I have more questions than judgments about that. So I'm curious to hear, what do you think that reflects? Do you agree? Do you sense that a lot of people are only or mostly getting their news from social media as well? What do you think?
Well, it's a factual statement that a large percentage of Americans get their information from social media. It's not even necessarily news.
That's a good point.
They get a relative amount of information. If you count YouTube as social media, which you can say it is and it isn't. Yeah. You know, most people are learning things on YouTube right now.
That's such a good point.
the history of how social media has impacted politics really dates back to 2008, because 2008 was actually the year that Facebook had only allowed non-college students to be able to use the app for about 2 years by then. Because up until 2005, 2006, Facebook was only for college students.
Right.
Then they opened it up to the masses. So that was the first time that you had a campaign with social media involved. And then by 2008, you also had Twitter, which had just started coming around. So information sharing started becoming really, really prevalent. Now, 2008 also happened to be the start and the birthplace of MAGA politics with vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin, where you can say a lot of things about what that meant. Just because somebody who was completely unqualified, unable to answer simple questions about foreign policy was suddenly going to be the vice presidential candidate or the vice president in the office.
It sort of like opened the door to other like really ill-informed or...
What it did, though, was it actually became a representation for what people referred to back then as the silent majority, which was people who were in more rural areas of our country had never been able to have a politician that they believed spoke to them.
Right.
I am one of those people where I actually think it's more positive that people are able to get information so accessible to them in small segments, just because
Agreed.
I think people are more informed about specific things. I think the more people are sharing things about Gaza, about Medicaid, about Social Security, about veterans benefits, about FEMA, about housing, I think it's better. The more we have of that and the less we have of men in Speedos running through our feeds is so much better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, making information more accessible, I'm never going to be in opposition of that. And so that like really resonates with me. I obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you would agree, like I do understand some of the cons to that. Like information is more accessible, which means misinformation is also more accessible. So I do like get that like we have a long way to go. But overall, I'm like, yeah, more information, more accessibility, make it easier to understand, make it feel like it's something you can digest is overall like, which is why I think the fact that a large population of people get information and news from social media, I'm like, well, great. Like they're consuming content in a way that's like accessible to them or easy for them.
The problem is, because I agree with you, the problem is that an overwhelming majority of the creators and the media publication entities that create this content are creating rage bait.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the catch-22, which is it's great that people are now getting more information than they did before. The bad part is that most people don't want to do any more research than viewing the Instagram post and just coming to a conclusion.
Yeah.
And then one social media post can suddenly convince somebody that the government spends money on transgendered mice operations.
Right. And it's wild to think like people really want to believe that.
Yeah. It's like, because people want to believe that there is so much wasteful government spending happening. And there is.
And there is. That's what's wild, because there is. It's just not on trans.
It's
mice.
like,
it's so funny. I tend to find that a lot of folks that are very mistrusting of the government, and I get why. I think healthy skepticism is good, but the things that they think are happening, I'm like, you think our government is way smarter than it actually is. Like it is so much more boring than what you think is actually going on. We're wasting money on like the most boring, dumbest shit, and it is not on trans people. Like I can almost guarantee you that, or I can guarantee you that. And so it's just like so funny to me that I think people overestimate our government and what they can actually.
Well, yeah, it's like, you know, it's just people are searching for narratives to confirm their extremism.
Yeah. It's so interesting too, because with the male loneliness epidemic, it's a lot of the men that follow or listen to folks like Joe Rogan or Andrew Tate, they talk so much about like individualism and like pulling yourself up by your bootstraps and like, you can be the change you want to see. Like it's all up to you. But it's like a false sense of individualism because then they end up blaming all of their problems on everybody else.
Yeah.
And not taking any accountability and not thinking, oh, I'm feeling really lonely. Maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. Maybe there's something I could be changing. Maybe there's something I could be exploring. And it's so fascinating that these guys that talk about you have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps are also saying, oh, you poor thing, you're lonely because of feminism. Before we wrap up, thank you so much, by the way. This has been so lovely. And I don't know if I said this, but you are my first guest.
I love that.
So thank you so much. But before we wrap up, I did want to ask you two things. One, who should we be following on social media? Who do you go to? Who do you trust? Who's someone on social media that you're like, you know what? Their content, I really appreciate. I really respect. Who should we be paying attention to?
So I'm going to surprise some people by saying this. So
Donald Trump. Oh, no. You're
Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. One of my favorite accounts, and some people are not going to like this response, is actually, her name is Jordan is My Lawyer. And she has a podcast called Unbiased.
Yes, I'm familiar.
She's a little biased, if I'm being completely honest.
Well, that's so funny. I follow her too, and I appreciate the intention of providing facts as just like the facts. But it brings up this whole philosophical question as like, which is there such a thing as unbiased information, like, or unbiased thought? But that's for another podcast.
I would say. On a grading scale, I would give her like a solid B plus A minus on actually being unbiased and just reporting facts. And she has a lot of great. She's a lawyer.
Yeah,
she's why she's called Jordan is My Lawyer.
Yeah.
And so she's really great. I like Ground News.
Mm-hmm.
I follow them on social media just because I like the fact that they report on things and then they give basically a grading scale of does this lean progressive or does this lean conservative?
Okay. Cool.
They're really good. In terms of entertainment and peace of mind in the political sphere, there is a Black creator I follow called Booker Squared. She just drags white conservative women to hell. But like her roasts are like, they give me so much joy.
Oh, I can't wait to look that up.
And shout out to my internet friend, Suzanne Lambert, who is she's known as the Regina George liberal.
Okay.
And she was the one that made like Republican makeup like very, very popular.
Oh,
it's like cool. She is amazing. She basically has this level of pettiness, which is like
aspirational. So in under a minute, can you tell my audience, all of two people, probably my mom. Hi, Mom. What is one thing that you have learned or one piece of advice or nugget of wisdom from a therapist or from your own therapy or from like the mental health world that you take with you everywhere you go that's been really meaningful to you?
Yeah, this was my second therapist. She really, really helped me out with. So for context, I'm a double Virgo. I'm a Virgo sun, Virgo rising, which means I have really, really hard issues with not being in control of things.
Okay.
And I go back to something that she had taught me, which actually was probably one of the most life-changing things ever. Her name is Leslie. After the pandemic, she like moved to France and now she grows grapes with her sister.
Hi, Leslie.
What she taught me was basically a huge root of a lot of the things that were giving me insane amounts of anxiety and insane amounts of putting pressure on myself and all of my control issues were, she basically told me, you can only control the things that you can control.
Mm-hmm.
And you are caring so much about things that are completely out of your control. And that got like foundationally built. And so that really actually saved my marriage currently. Sorry, Sam, if you're listening to this. But like, I used to approach relationships with this belief that I can change people.
Yeah.
And people don't really like to change.
No, change is
like
scary.
It's like so
much work.
This understanding of basically you can only control the things that you can control. That was probably the one takeaway. And that bleeds into all aspects of my life.
Many other aspects. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Layli. I absolutely adore you. I am so proud of you. I feel like You are doing such a good job of like building community and trying to inform people instead of, convince people. You're just like trying to inform them and letting them make their own decisions. I really respect that. And if you are interested in seeing or hearing a little bit more of what Nathan has to say, you can follow him on his social media accounts, Nathan June, Jun, on both Instagram and TikTok. This podcast is no substitute for good old-fashioned therapy, even though I am a therapist. I know, but still. So take what's useful, leave the rest, and never forget, therapy makes you hotter. Bye.